Hi, Lumberjack 7 here. We thought you might like to have a close look at where we Lumberjacks live.
Yo, how's it going guys? Welcome back to another video. Bedwars PVP may be more complex than you actually think. Simply just left clicking and aiming isn't enough if you want to get crazy combos on people. So today I'll be showing you some of the best Bedwars strategies for PvP, and they should help you win almost every fight you do. Before this video starts, please remember to like and subscribe. Making videos like these takes a lot of time and effort, and it really motivates me when I get support from my viewers. All you have to do is just click the like button. It's completely free and it would help me out a ton. Oh, by the way, like I'm recording this while I'm editing, you guys should go and check out this other video I made on Bedwars. It's really good. Okay, continue the video. One of the most common faults in Bedwars PvP is not buying armor. If you're playing doubles or solos, it is essential to buy iron armor at some point in the game. You'll probably get your resources to do this from rushing bases next to you. If you fight someone with leather armor and you have iron, you pretty much have an automatic win. In solos, I'm usually aiming to get iron armor my first lot of gold. I do a pretty similar strategy in doubles as well, but sometimes I buy TNT. In trios and fours, I would say buying iron armor is very helpful and you should definitely get it if you can afford it. But most of the time when I'm doing trios and fours, I'm usually doing IYN, and I don't really care about iron armor until the last rush. Now there are still two other types of armor which I haven't covered yet, which are chainmail and diamond armor. Chainmail is the most useless type of armor in the game. The only times I would buy this is if I was being rushed as a final and I can't afford iron armor yet. Other than that, there's no use for it at all. Diamond armor, on the other hand, is only useful when you're a final. Unless you're very confident that you're going to win the game, and you've just somehow came across someone who just dropped 6 emeralds, I wouldn't buy this in many games unless I really have to. Okay, so now that we've covered armor, let's get into swords. Now in my opinion, the stone sword is the most useful sword in the game. Always buy a stone sword when you can. It does a little bit of extra damage for an extremely low price, which really helps out when you're fighting someone with the same stuff as you. Especially since sharpness in a stone sword does more damage than iron, it makes a stone sword far more superior to a wooden sword. Iron swords are also really helpful because they do tons of damage when combined with sharpness, but they're also a little bit expensive, so make sure you have iron armor before buying them. And finally, diamond swords. I would personally say that diamond swords are a little bit underrated. When I'm a final in solos, usually I rush a diamond sword and a pearl. You can do the same thing in doubles, but don't rush diamond swords in 3s and 4s unless you really need to. Pots are so much better in 3s and 4s than a diamond sword. With that out of the way, I'm going to move on to something else. Oh yeah, I forgot as well. Don't buy a bow! Okay, so in Bedwars, sprint resetting is extremely important. Most people should know by now that W tapping gives you a sprint reset and gives you extra knockback. W tapping is one of the most common methods of sprint reset, however block hitting is also extremely important. In order to explain these two methods, I need to explain some of Minecraft's physics. When you stop moving or start moving slowly, this makes it easier for the player you're fighting to get a combo if they're faster than you. This means that drinking speed potions helps get better combos on your opponent. But wouldn't that mean that since you're block hitting, it makes you move slower, so therefore people can get easier combos on you? So why would you block hit? Well, despite the fact that block hitting allows people to get better combos on you, it also does more knockback to your opponent. It means that block hitting is safe to do in bursts, but not all the time. What I mean by this is you can variate between W tapping and block hitting in a fight. If you're W tapping and then your opponent starts getting close to you and getting more hits, you can quickly switch to block hitting and move them away from you. After switching to block hitting, you should immediately switch back to W tapping to avoid getting comboed. I'm not going to show you how to block hit or W tap in this video because they're both pretty self-explanatory, and if you really need to, you can go search up some tutorials for yourself. Block hitting is also really good if you want to knock someone off something. For example, knocking someone into the void or knocking them off a bridge. However, now the methods are out of the way, let's talk about something else that is very important. If you're a frequent rod PvPer, you would know that a rod is used to allow your opponent to move backwards so you can get a better combo. Whilst there are no rods in Bedwars, you can still substitute this for a pretty similar method. Pretty much anything that moves someone back or stops them from moving can really help you get combos. Placing blocks in front of people is a really good way to get a combo because they stop moving and you can go much faster than them. You can also use snowballs and bridge eggs to do this, but I'd say that's a massive waste of resources. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that. Alright, let's move on to the next one. Personally, I think hardware isn't too much of an important aspect of Bedwars PvP. However, if you're using a trackpad, you're definitely doing it wrong. I would recommend any double-clicking mice. My current mouse I use is a Glorious Model O, which has a toggleable debounce time. If you can afford this, I would totally recommend buying it. Whilst there are other mice that allow you to get more CPS, such as the bloody A7, those mice usually use drag clicking, and I wouldn't say gob bridging is very important. Your keyboard also isn't very important. I have a Ducky One SF, which is a relatively small keyboard. However, I did use a regular Dell keyboard for around 5 years before buying this. And as for monitors, I would say you should at least have a 60Hz monitor. I don't think anything above that is really necessary. I've been using the same 60Hz monitor and I still use it today. And in terms of FPS, I'd say you should try to aim to get at least 120 FPS. This way you can reduce all screen tearing and everything like that. That's all I really need to say about hardware. It isn't that important. I may or may not have just added this in to stretch the watch time, but you know. Alright, let's move on to the next part of the video. Team wiping is when you single-handedly take out an entire team. It is a very important aspect of doubles, trios, and fours. If you're doing IYN, you will especially need to know these set of skills. It's pretty obvious, but the more people you have to kill, the harder it's going to be to team wipe. In doubles, I would say it's fairly easy to team wipe if you don't try to fight your opponents at the same time. You should try as hard as you can to fight your opponents individually. This way you can't get hit from two different directions, so you won't take as much damage. When team wiping anyone, you should try and get as much free kills as possible. What I mean by this is hitting someone into the void and taking no damage, or just backstabbing people would be a really good way to team wipe. Most of the time when you fail a team wipe, it's not because you've been hit by multiple people, it's because you've been hit in multiple different directions. You can avoid getting on low health in team wipes by buying gapples and healing yourself when you're low. You can also use fireball jumps to fireball jump out of a bad situation, and you can use invis potions to backstab players. A common strategy I see sweats like Yeti doing is trying to get their opponents to stand on a bridge and knock them off. This allows you to get some easy kills without taking any damage. When team wiping, you always want to minimize the amount of damage you've taken. Team wiping in fours is a lot more difficult than doubles, and it requires you to get a lot of void kills. Again, trying to lure your opponents near the void is a really good way to team wipe. Using knockback sticks also works pretty well because it helps you knock people off. Most of the time in fours, you'll be team wiping with another teammate, so it should be much more easier to kill the entire team. You'll just be able to 2v1 each person and you'll be fine. Anyways, that's all I have to say about team wiping. You only need to know how to do these things if you want to play doubles, trios, and fours, because solos is just a 1v1. Let's move on to the final part of this video. Okay, so honestly I have no idea how to categorize these tips I'm about to give out, but they're extremely helpful, so here we go anyway. When you're below your opponent, you have an extra 1 block reach because you can hit their feet. This means that you can easily get the first hit in some combos, or you can just flawless your opponent from below. When jumping on someone, you almost always get the first hit. I'm not quite sure why this is, it's probably something to do with how fast you fall. When running away from people on bridges, you should spam blocks behind you to slow your opponent down. This is where they have to run past a ton of obstacles to get to you, which can allow you to go and buy something from a shopkeeper and get stacked. You should try to abuse your spawn protection by buying an iron sword on spawn. This way you can kill someone who is very stacked and at your base. Placing golden apples in your ender chest is a really good strategy, because it means that you can get extra absorption whilst fighting someone who's rushing your base. Throwing spare items such as an iron sword or a stone sword in your generator can really help fight an incoming player. This is because you'll respawn with a really good sword, and you won't respawn with a wooden sword. In your first rush, if you're unable to kill your opponent after breaking his bed, and you can go and steal his generator and shove it in your ender chest. This will prevent them from getting any more items to help kill you. Abuse knockback sticks. They're OP. Anyway, that's all I really have to say about Bedwars PVP. If you want more videos like this, please remember to like and subscribe. These videos always take a really long time to make, but I think they're much more original than just my Bedwars commentaries. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed and I'll see you later. Bye.